Okay, hello. We'll talk today about the Norwegian architect Sverre Fehn, born in 1924 and died in 2009. This was the man, serious as most Norwegians and Scandinavians are, a good architect, a sensitive architect, and an architect who tried to run away from the tradition, the Nordic tradition, and as he said, he couldn't quite succeed. But that's maybe a good thing that he didn't succeed. I admire the Norwegian culture if I am to think only of Henrik Ibsen and Edvard Munch. Anyway, so some drawings as Sverre Fehn. This is for the Norway or the northern countries pavilion at the Venice Biennial in Venice. A lyrical way of drawing, if I may say. I thought a bit too, you know, that on a round Earth, rotating around the sun, the situation that is described in this drawing is very possible. That we are actually on the Earth, but you know, upside down. A philosopher and a poet, it seems. Now, from 1958, the Norwegian pavilion at the Brussels World's Fair in Belgium, you know, kind of international style modern architecture. Now, the Nordic Pavilion at the Venice Biennial in Italy, we already saw a sketch from 1962, and the building still stands just as it is. And this year, an artist, architect from Norway, created a chaotic environment within this very pavilion designed by Sverre Fehn. So it seems that very civilized countries like Norway do seem to have a nostalgia, if I can call it so, towards what it ran away from, and that is chaos. If we consider what this pavilion hosts this very day, this very year, and at this very moment. It's a good building, and the drama between the tree and the building is quite telling. Both in the corner of the building and in the center of the pavilion, as you can see. The trunks of the trees are, you know, almost like three sculptures within the pavilion, penetrating the roof, claiming a right to live and breathe. Sverre Fehn, Venice, 1962. Man and Culture, Man and Nature. Now, Villa Schreiner in Oslo, 1963. This is, I would say, remarkable in the Scandinavian culture that even when there is opulence, financially speaking, the display of it is rather reticent. They are not ostentatious. Very rarely you see signs of, you know, aggressive assertion of one's possessions. And it's not hypocrisy either. It's a sense of measure, which I admire in the Scandinavian culture. I mean, as you can see, this is a large house, but still the image is rather intimate, and it doesn't crush you with its dimensions. Yes, it uses the grid, but it's not rationalistically imposing. Maybe in part because of the material used, that is wood. You wonder, though, about the appropriateness of having the kitchen and the bathrooms in the center of the house without, I mean, there are the skylights, but, there is no direct ventilation except through, adjacent walls and windows. Brick and wood, they never fail us. A very pleasant house. Another villa in Sweden, this time 1963, 1964. Here we see a kind of a rotation, although it's subtle, this rotation, because of it's not even a rotation, it's, well, it is, as you can see in this section drawing, but the plan doesn't suggest this subtleness. It's because of the corners in glass which expand towards the outside, and the other walls, the four sides, seem to suggest a centripetal movement, while the corners will have a centrifugal situation. A very interesting house, actually, with this interplay between closeness and openness, between masonry walls and glass. It's actually no rotation. I was wrong here. When I look at this, it's the way it is drawn, but otherwise there is no diagonal in this scheme. I like very much this corner you see here. So where the corner is not just plain glass, but there is some kind of an interplay between furniture, built-in furniture, and glass, reminding one of at least one house by Louis Kahn. It's an interesting attempt to escape the demagogy of glass, if I can call it so. Well, actually, it wasn't me who invented this wording, but Andrea Kahn, um, an architect in the United States, who edited uh, a book published by Princeton Architectural Press with articles by 10 women architects. Again, he places the services at the center or at the inside, having a connection with the outside only at the top. This is what I refer to when I looked at the outgoing glass corner with some wooden parts and then the masonry walls adjacent. And here you see a view of this outgoing glass corner, which also has wooden parts which can be used as shelves and are used as shelves. Sverre Fehn's fragmented windows. Yes, here it is. We could also maybe say fragmented transparency. Another house, 1967 in Oslo. Here we have the rotation at the center. The Scandinavians do not play games with wood. They know wood, they feel wood, they understand wood, and they respect it and even love it. And most works done by Scandinavians in wood are very sensitively and exquisitely even done. But in simple terms, not in extravagant terms at all. As I said, brick and wood They never fail us if we respect them, if we love them, if we employ them properly. Now, Hedmark Museum in Hamar, Norway, 1967, 1979. Fine work, adapting his own architecture to existing conditions. Not that he is not capable of asserting even concrete in courageous ways. He is. He's not afraid of innovation. So an existing building to which he made his, interventions. The blending of rurality with urbanity or rurality with urban civilization in the case of Scandinavian countries is often exemplary. So here we have the blending of the old and the new. Look at that beam, the snake beam. And the woodwork of the roof is always enticing in architecture, even when it's not very elaborate or done by a very skillful architect. And then we have this penetration of the building by the diagonal, the strong, assertive diagonal of concrete. And then, displayed elements within the building. The old and the new together. He's not afraid of the ruins either. That's him. It is possible. Contemplating the future of his own building or his own contributions to the building, because in the end, what goes up goes down. It's difficult not to become melancholy when you contemplate what he is contemplating, if indeed that's him. Jean Nouvel talked about the injustice of time, meaning the injustice of having the work of man in time succumb to the elements. But I wouldn't call it injustice. It's in the nature of life. And as Goethe said, death is just another way through which nature rejuvenates itself, and life rejuvenates itself. So the falling of the buildings maybe is not an injustice at all. It's just a way of making room for new buildings. Now, I know architects want to last forever, but even the Egyptian pyramids do not last forever, and they are showing signs of being tired here and there. And many great buildings collapsed. So we have to come to terms with this and not call it injustice. It's a little bit naive. I was a little bit surprised that Jean Nouvel said something like this. It's like saying the arrival of the fall after summer is an injustice because the leaves of the trees begin to fall. No, it's not an injustice. It's the cyclical nature of life and nature. But I understand it's not easy to accept death. We all want to last forever and ever and ever. It's just not possible. Anyway, a good work by Sverre Fehn. Melancholia and action, assertion and reticence. Villa Busk and Bumble, 1990. This one has elements of, like here on the left, this tower, in my opinion, that doesn't look very convincing. It's a little bit, I don't know, naive architecturally speaking. But an interesting house, though, when you look at the plan, very long, a linear house in a spectacular landscape, a rocky landscape. Yeah, it's this tower which I find not very creatively done. He could have found a different roofing, less predictable, less convenient. Otherwise, there are some interesting things here as well. Yeah, the tower, the tower is not very skillfully done, in my opinion. But everything else is okay, so to speak. I know this is not the language of the critic, and I'm not a critic. I'm just a commentator. Sometimes more inspired than other times, or sometimes less inspired. Yeah, this hat of the tower is surprisingly inadequate. Not functionally, because it functions, but something is wrong. The pattern of thoughts, Sverre Fehn, the book, the cover of a book, the pattern of thoughts. Now, the Norwegian Glacier Museum in 1991, 2002, I don't know what to think of this one. It's a little bit I don't know, in a way too modern and too explicitly so, and a little bit mundane. And then the entrance is a little bit desperate to attract your attention. I mean, the attention of the visitor. It's like a vacuum cleaner which wants to suck you in. And anyway, maybe I'm too harsh. But the landscape is magnificent. And it's true, how do you build when you have these impressive mountains nearby? It's not easy, but it's a beautiful challenge. A lot of glass now for a mountainous landscape and environment. Glass, in my opinion, should be a little bit discouraged in the mountains. But if you have the money that Norway has, maybe the electrical bill is not a problem. It's not just about money. Somehow it's inadequate to have such surfaces of glass in the mountains where there is snow and when winters still exist, even at the time of global warming. Oakrust Center in Alfdal, 1993-1996. He seems to like architectural crystallizations that are, based on lengthy, promenade, if I am to call it so. I wonder in what way he felt that Norwegian tradition is still present in his work. I'm not very knowledgeable about Norway or the Norwegian tradition. I know that Christian Norbert Schulz was an important thinker about architecture coming from Norway. For a short while, I worked with his son in the same office, Palo Portuguese in Rome. We didn't like each other. I'm talking about the son of Christian Norbert Schulz. Anyway, another long building by Sverre Fehn. Adi is very skillful at bringing together various materials and crafting details that are legitimate and even aesthetically pleasing, convincing. stone, metal, wood, and glass. I can't read this, I'm sorry, 2000s, the year 2000s. Maybe another small museum or some kind of a cultural center. There is more serenity here, although the Norwegian spirit could know and can know something about angst as well. If we remember the writings of Knut Hamsun, another great cultural figure from Norway, for whom Stephen Hall built an excellent house or museum house for Knut Hamsun. And if we remember, so Edvard Munch and Henrik Ibsen, here we have three great creators coming from Norway. I like this canopy in the foreground, unexpected now in considering the natural environment, but surprising and enticing aesthetically and beautifully crafted. I wonder how it looks, that glass with the snow above, and I think it would look great. Another house, 2007. Well, this is a house. It looks like something else, a house within a house or a house within a building. I don't know why it is called. Maybe it's just a, a generic name, house, Gyldendal House in Oslo. It looks like an office building or something with that little house within. The skylights. The National Museum of Art, Architecture and Design in Oslo, 2003, 2008. A small museum, if a little bit unexpectedly when you think that it's about a national museum of art, architecture and design, all three of them, and then you look at the building, it's rather small, but again, I mentioned the reticence of the Scandinavian spirit. Again, a lot of glass, beautifully crafted, but still glass. In the canopy previously seen, it was okay, I guess, because it was not an enclosed space. So glass was just a surface on which snow accumulated. But here is about the enclosure, and thus the the losses of energy caused by this material glass can be significant, unless, of course, there is that sophisticated glass which protects against losses of energy. But somehow, even visually, glass seems to be incongruent somehow with the cold climates. Maybe even frosted glass, even if it is already frosted by itself. But the demagogy of glass seduced many people from the south, the east, the west, and the north, and continues to do so. I wonder how the world of architecture would be without so much glass, or without glass at all, or almost at all. Could we conceive something like this? I mean, what bothers me about glass is that in this case, it turns its back on the realities of the cold climate. And it's so sure of itself because there is the technological mechanism which allows for air conditioning, but under more sustainable imperatives, I would say so much glass should be discouraged. I hope I'm not judged harshly because I'm rather harsh in my assessment, but too much glass in a cold climate, in my opinion, shows a little bit of insensitivity towards that climate. And now we see this quotation from him: I have tried all my life to run away from the Nordic tradition, but I realize that it is difficult to run away from yourself. This is probably true. It is difficult to run away from yourself, but maybe it should be equally difficult to run away from the stringencies of what we call nature. Thank you.